million square area. So to deal with all these offices, the issue was how to find out the dates. And after discussion, the decision was made that we should have our own calendar, and how to start our own Islamic calendar. And you look at the love of Sahaba with the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, they decided the very turning point in Islamic history is the hijrah of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam from Makkah to Medina. So this will be our beginning of Islamic calendar. So anything, if you want to document it before hijrah or after hijrah, so the hijrah, that's why it's called Hijri calendar. The hijrah and the migration of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam will be a turning point. So this is the hijrah calendar started. His intention was, with the starting of this calendar, he connected with his beloved Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. But look at the taqdeer of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He started the first day with the zikr of Umar bin Khattab and his shahada and his martyr. Those who have some ill feeling, they always try to discuss the dates, this and that, and try to confuse the people. But they don't know, when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala reward you, when Allah give you barakah and blessing, your hatred or your all ill feeling will have no value. This is the personality which is not only praised by Muslims. Umar bin Khattab, his justice, his wisdom, and his commitment, praised by non-Muslim and others. When you read the history, many historians, non-Muslims, when they mention great personalities, so they mention always Sayyidina Umar bin Khattab radiyallahu ta'ala anhu, one of them. And if you remember, the example was the hundreds where they mentioned the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam as the great leader of this world of all time. The second personality which they mentioned in the hundred is Umar bin Khattab also. Not as a second person, but he is mentioned in the hundreds. In the age of 27, he accepted Islam. And before him, according to historian, 27 male and 12 women, they have accepted. So he was the 40th in acceptance of Islam. And why I'm mentioning this, that you should understand that he was among the as-sabiqun al-awwalun, those who were praised by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in Quran. As I mentioned in the Seerah of Usman Ghani, was-sabiqun al-awwaluna min al-muhajirin wal-ansar. As-sabiqun al-awwalun, in the most difficult and hard time, those who accepted Islam, they are always praised by Quran. They have a great status. The reason this was the most difficult time to accept Islam. After, in Madinatul Munawwara, when Islamic State established, so even some hypocrites, they showed their Islam for any worldly benefit, for any mal, for any mata, for any post. And Quran mentioned all these. But in the most difficult time, when there was no hope of all these things, becoming Muslim, making yourself entitled for any torture, making yourself entitled for any hardship and harm, in this very difficult time, when accepting Islam, the most difficult job, this is the time when Umar bin Khattab radiyallahu ta'ala accepted Islam. And in fact, he was known as Murad-e-Rasul, who was asked the dua, the result of the dua of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And Muhaddishin mentioned this hadith, that the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam says, Hazrat Ibn Umar is the narrator of this hadith, hadith number 3690 in Sahih Sitta Jami' at-Tirmizi. In a very difficult time when the Sahaba were suffering day and night from the torture of the enemies, and they were thinking that all weak people, we should torture them, we should humiliate them so they can leave Islam, and we should not let the light of Islam to spread out of Makkah. When they tried to use all their conspiracies and all the evilness in a very difficult time, one day the Prophet ﷺ raised his hands and he says, Allahumma, oh my Lord. You can imagine the difficult time, the hard time where you were looking for someone to help and support. So for help and support, the Prophet ﷺ says, Allahumma, oh my Lord, a'izz al-Islam. A'izz al-Islam, support Islam. Give i'zaz to Islam, support Islam. Bi-ahabbayni hadayni rajulayni, with the one who is more loved by you. The two people were very influential in Makkah this time. Two people. Bihabbaini hazaini rajulaini, these are very influential people in Makkah. Oh my Lord, support Islam with any one of them who is more loved by you, Ya Allah. Ahabbaini, look at the dua of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Bihabbaini, who is loved by you. Who? These two? Bi-Abi Jahl ibn Umar ibn Hisham, or by Umar ibn al-Khattab. One which was known in the society, Abu Jahl, and the second, Umar ibn Khattab. So he was Ibn Hisham, and this was Ibn Khattab. وَكَانَ أَحَبُّهُمَا لَهِ Umar. And they says, the next day when Umar bin Khattab came to accept Islam, the Sahaba realized that the most loved one to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the son of Khattab, Umar. And in fact, when you look at the history, when you read the history of Islam, this was the turning point, acceptance of Umar bin Khattab radiallahu ta'ala. And you heard from many ulama most of the time that this was the first day when he said, Ya Rasulullah, are we not on haqq? So Prophet ﷺ said, if we are not on haqq, who will be on haqq? Then he said, Ya Rasulullah, if we are on haqq and we are right, why we are hiding here in Darul Arqam? Why these Sahaba are hiding their Islam? Why these people in a dark night come to this Darul Arqam and they are telling what the revelation revealed? Ya Rasulullah, if we are on haqq, then we have to show our Islam. We have to announce it publicly. You could imagine where announcing your Islam was the biggest challenge, accepting in Makkah. And Abu Jahl, Utbah, Shayba, and all these, the big leaders, they were looking for someone to find out and then torture him. When Umar bin Khattab says, Ya Rasulullah, we are not on haqq, why not? He said, then we have to show our Islam. He said, this was the first day when Sahaba publicly, in a daylight, came out of Darul Arqam and publicly, openly, they did ibadah in Haram. The first day when they publicly came and they did ibadah in Haram, there were two rows of the Sahaba, the historian says. One row, the head of this one is Ameer Hamza, the uncle of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and the second row of the Sahaba led by Sayyidina Umar bin Khattab radiyallahu ta'ala. You can understand completely the whole scenario has changed. The whole Makkah environment has changed. And the people were in shock that the son of Khattab has accepted Islam. He was the worst enemy of the Prophet. And we were trying to use him against. And in fact, he was encouraged, na'udhu billah, to kill Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So this person who was ready to kill the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, na'udhu billah, the worst enemy of Islam, he accepted Islam. And this was a big defeat to the kufr and the shirk in the valley of Makkah. And that's why the Hazrat Abdullah bin Masud said, the Umar acceptance of Islam was a victory for Islam. His Islam was not only acceptance of Islam of Umar bin Khattab. Abdullah bin Masud, जैसे जलीलुल क़दर सहाबी कहते हैं, it was a real victory for Islam. The day of the victory, when Umar bin Khattab radiallahu ta'ala accepted Islam. And then he said, his hijrah was success for Islam. When Umar bin Khattab publicly decided he gonna do hijrah, the Sahaba Ikram in this very difficult time, the kuffar and the mushrikeen of Makkah, they were trying again not to let the Sahaba to go out of city. They were thinking when they go out, they can make alliances. And with their alliances, they're going to create problem for us. So it's better to be surrounded in Makkah, so we can easily deal them. And mostly they are weak people. They are very weak people, those who initially accepted Islam. So when they were putting barrier for those who were migrating, this was the first day when Umar bin Khattab came, when he got permission from the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and he came wearing his own sword, his own cloth. He came to the haram and he said, you people are looking for someone to migrate and stop him, and you are challenging these weak people. This is the son of Khattab. I am publicly announcing, I am migrating today from Makkah to Medina. Is there anyone, kisi maa ne bachcha jana hai jo Umar ko roke? Is there anyone to come forward? Is there anyone come to say a single word to me? I am migrating. You are challenging here and there. Those who are Ghulam, those who are weak, those who are without tribes. You are used to with them. This is the son of Khattab in front of you. Is anyone ready to stop me? Is anyone ready to challenge me? And then he said very proudly, he did tawaf and he announced. He said publicly, the one who challenged everyone and then migrated to Makkah al-Mukarramah, one of them is Sayyidina Umar bin Khattab radiyallahu ta'ala. So look at the first day of Umar bin Khattab, when Abdullah bin Masud says was a victory for Islam. Look at the hijrah of Umar bin Khattab. They says it was a success for Islam. And the third, the ruling of Umar bin Khattab, Abdullah bin Masud said, this third era, the third aspect of life of Umar bin Khattab, he said this was a blessing for Islam. This was the time Umar bin Khattab, you know, the 2.5 years more or less of Hazrat Abu Bakr Siddiq radiallahu ta'ala, most of the time he was fighting with the inner problems. The munafiqeen, those who were claiming the prophethood, with all these people, those who denied to pay zakat. But Umar bin Khattab radiallahu ta'ala anhu, he ruled, Allahu Akbar, in his 11 years, 10 years and 6 months or some days. Islamic world expanded from Hijaz to Africa, from Africa to Asia. 2.2 million square mile area ruled by Umar bin Khattab radiallahu ta'ala. Could you imagine? Nowadays the Makran, the Balochistan of Pakistan coastal area, from here all the way to Nile of Egypt, from all the way to Iraq, and from all these areas to Hijaz, the whole 2.2 million square mile area ruled by one ruler, Umar bin Khattab radiallahu ta'ala. Could you imagine, just few years back, the Sahaba used to read hiding in the Darul Arqam, very quietly reading, the enemy should not find out we are reading Quran. Could you imagine this success in such a short period of time? It was the power of the da'wah of the Prophet and the power of those who became companion of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. When you have right people around, then you will see this success in your life. Go read the non-Muslim historian. When they mention, I think that the Jummah, and I don't know, many Jummas will not allow us to mention the success of Sayyidina Umar bin Khattab radiallahu ta'ala, the work he has done for Islam. But these are some which historian mentioned without going to the detail. Some success, कुछ कामयाबियाँ जो उसने इस्लामी सल्तनत को अता की, and the historian they are agreed upon. They say nowadays we are talking about the orphanage and supporting orphan. He said, first in Madinatul Munawwara, care home for orphans established by Umar bin Khattab radiyallahu ta'ala. Secondly, they say the social benefit for those who are not able to work in the city of Medina. You called it dark age. In this dark age, the first concept of social benefit to help those who are not able to work, this is established in the city of Medina by the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And in fact, I told you this story just as a reminder that he has seen one in Madinatul Munawwara, a Jew, a blind Jew, he was begging. And he stopped him and he said, why you are begging? And he said, Ya Ameer al-Momneen, when I was young, see the Jew of Medina. He said, when I was young, Ya Ameer al-Momneen, I used to work hard, I used to earn and support my family. But now I am not in a position to support my family. You see, I am blind. So I don't have any option but to beg in the city of Medina. And Umar bin Khattab radiyallahu ta'ala cried. And he said, oh Umar, how you will answer in the court of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. When Allah asks you, the people when they were in good health, they were supporting the state, they were doing, but they were in need, your state is not taking care of the ri'ayah of your public. And the same day he said, you have to sit at home. This is the responsibility of the state to support you. You don't have to beg in the city of Medina. The concept of the social benefit is from Umar bin Khattab radiyallahu ta'ala. Even the council housing, you called it, to give housing to those who don't have. The initial council housing to support people in different areas. And not only in Medina, if you look at the established cities, the Kufa city, now such a big city, this is initially established by Umar bin Khattab radiyallahu ta'ala. In Iraq, the Basra, so many times you hear the war in Iraq, in Basra. This city is established by Umar bin Khattab radiyallahu ta'ala. In Egypt, near to Cairo, the city of Fustas, initially established by Umar bin Khattab radiyallahu ta'ala. So the cities, and realizing on this time that the expansion of the city, rather than having the load on the old system, you have to establish new cities so the people live in peace and under peace of mind, having all the facilities of life, but at the same time the housing for those who don't have houses. Sayyidina Umar bin Khattab radiyallahu ta'ala anhu. Even pension for pension, the concept of the pension, which is called in the time of Umar bin Khattab, the Diwan, is established by Umar bin Khattab radiyallahu ta'ala anhu. For the travelers on old days rest house, the state's rest house for the traveler, those who are traveling to Jar and the ordinary people, this was established by Umar bin Khattab radiyallahu ta'ala anhu. Regular court and quzat appointed by Umar bin Khattab radiyallahu ta'ala anhu. Regular police to take care of the public. When the night time people are sleeping, but the chore and the kid should not take the advantage. And the night time, daytime, the policing system in Madinatul Munawwara, initially the historian are agreed upon that this policing system is established by Umar bin Khattab radiyallahu ta'ala anhu at that time. And then the state bank concept, which is called Baytul Mal, the ulama says, initially initially started by Abu Bakr Siddiq radiyallahu ta'ala anhu, but there was no concept of having something for the difficult time, to have a proper state bank, and you have mal in it, and then when there is a need for any project, you have to support these projects. This state bank, the basic concept initially given by Sayyidina Umar bin Khattab radiyallahu ta'ala anhu. And then when you have a social benefit, when you have a housing, and when you have a support for all others, definitely you should know how many people are in need in society. They say the census, now we say the population of this country and this country. Initially the concept of census, to count the people, how many are there in the society, and then categorize it according to their need. This is initially taken by Sayyidina Umar bin Khattab radiyallahu ta'ala anhu. As I said before, the calendar, Islamic Hijrah, Umar bin Khattab radiyallahu ta'ala anhu. Making new cities, Umar bin Khattab radiyallahu ta'ala anhu. Regular army, in the time of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, there was no regular army. When there is a need, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam used to call the people. Some are working in field, some are doing businesses, they are busy in their own activities. But upon the call of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, they used to gather, leave all their jobs, leave all their activities, and defend Islam. But the proper regular army concept, and their salaries initially by Umar bin Khattab radiyallahu ta'ala anhu. और बाज़ हिस्टोरियन तो लिखा है कि हज़रत उमर बिन खत्ताब जब अपने आखिरी दौर में थे 10 लाख के करीब आर्मी को आपने तरतीब दे दिया था। इतने बड़े इलाके के लिए इतना बड़ा इंतज़ाम, ये सारे कमालात हैं। एंड इवन हिस्टोरियन से रेगुलर स्कूलिंग सिस्टम and salary for teacher initiated by Umar bin Khattab radiyallahu ta'ala anhu. He realized in this time when everyone was the darkness and the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam came as a light and nur and spread the ilm, the knowledge. But in initial stages, you can understand, after Madinatul Munawwara, the Riyasatul Madinatul Munawwara, state of Medina, Abu Bakr Siddiq radiyallahu ta'ala has only 2.5 years. The proper schooling system to educate Muslim children and to appoint teacher for them and have a salary for them, the whole system is established by Umar bin Khattab radiyallahu ta'ala anhu. Honestly, if I carry on, our Jummah will go to Asr. And the only, you can see, I just am mentioning, not going in detail. All these, the efforts of Umar bin Khattab radiyallahu, services to Islam of Umar bin Khattab radiyallahu ta'ala anhu, and the great justice of Umar bin Khattab radiyallahu ta'ala anhu. Inshallah, tonight we have a program in the to the zikr of Umar bin Khattab from Masr till Maghrib. So some other kamalat, and especially as head of the state, today you came from the result of the election, the politics, the basic of the politics, the impact on the society. The politics of Umar bin Khattab radiyallahu ta'ala is a complete subject. I don't want to just start it and not finish it. Otherwise, the politics of Umar bin Khattab, the rules, Allahu Akbar, when you see, you will be surprised. In 21st century, you can implement all the rules made in politics by Umar bin Khattab radiyallahu ta'ala anhu. So may Allah give us tawfiq to understand the seerah of these great companion of Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam and follow their footsteps. Wa akhiru da'wana alhamdulillah.